Hey everybody, I'm Pastor AJ Houseman and welcome to 10 Foot Pole, a podcast to dig deeper into aspects of the Bible that get glossed over or totally ignored in most preaching. The Bible has a lot of parts that are racy, uncomfortable, and sometimes downright horrifying. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 27. Today, our guests are Pastor Becca and Pastor Jon Fry. Pastor Becca is from the Vine Lutheran Campus Episcopal, campus ministries in New York City.
Yeah, we're an ecumenical campus ministry, Lutheran, Methodist, and Presbyterian, but it is confusing, so thank you.
I just started spouting off denominations, and they weren't the correct ones. That's fine.
Yes.
And then...
The more the merrier.
Pastor Jon is the Lutheran campus pastor at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church and Campus Center in Champaign, Illinois, at the University of Illinois. I just read his, and that was way more helpful. So we are currently at the Lutheran campus ministry / Episcopal / Presbyterian / somebody else, I think, campus and young adult ministry conference in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where, a couple of my other guests are going to be. Because, if I'm going to be with pastors in person, I'm going to take advantage of all of your time because I can. And because you guys just keep saying yes to me. So today, we are going to talk about... Wait, you can just laugh. It's fine.
This is just very different than doing this with you on Zoom. It's like the eye contact is very intense.
We're in a very small, dorm study room.
This might be a good group project.
Yes.
Most of the time when I'm in these rooms, it's a bad experience.
You also majored in accounting, which is a mistake, but here you are, you're a pastor! Yay! Okay, so we are going to talk about Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37 for Sunday, July 13th. If you're planning on going to church that Sunday, you will hear this. It is the parable of the Good Samaritan. So I'm going to read it, and I will read the New Revised Standard Version updated edition. We're up to date. Okay. An expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" The man answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." But wanting to vindicate himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and took off, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and when he saw the man, he passed on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw this man, passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came upon him, and when the Samaritan saw him, he was moved with compassion, and he went to him and bandaged his wounds, treating them with oil and wine. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, 'Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" And the man the lawyer said to Jesus, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
This is this is genuinely one of my favorite parables. For a lot of reasons, right? One, because I like that the man's trying to get out of it, right? And he's like,
the guy asking Jesus questions?
Yeah, who is my neighbor, right? How often do I think we hear that kind of stuff in the church of who is my neighbor? And so Jesus, in my opinion, kind of a sassy response is "Oh, let me tell you a story." And the thing about this story that I absolutely love, right, is that the idea that the Samaritan. So what people may or may not necessarily know is Samaria was an independent country inside of Israel, and they hated each other, hated them. like if people needed to travel, they would like the Israelites would go all the way around Samaria instead of through it, like take the long way. Like that's how much they hated the Samaritans. Like they didn't even want to walk through their country. And so like this goes both ways, right? Like this kind of like they're not friends, they're like neighbors, but like they don't like each other. And so this idea then that like a priest so would have been a part of theirs, and a Levite who would also have been a priestly class, like these are supposed to be, you know, godly men, good followers of the way, and they actively choose not to help. But this guy who's like supposed to be this outsider, this person that they're not friends with, that they absolutely can't stand, is the one that actually like goes out of his way to take care of someone.
I think it's a really profound parable too, and it's one that you hear so much that it's like sometimes hard to step back and I put yourself into it.
Yeah, I think it's one that we hear so much that like it's like, you know, because the Good Samaritan laws and all those kind of things, like it's just kind of taken on like a cultural aspect that I think like you gotta sit and actually like parse out like why this was so powerful when Jesus said it. And like if you don't understand those dynamics, it's not just that like he was the one, that these were three random people and he was one that stopped. It was very specific who didn't stop and then who stopped.
Well, and what is the Old Testament or the New Testament Jewish scholar, AJ Levine?
Amy Jill Levine.
Yeah.
Amy Jill Levine, yeah.
Yeah, I think she goes by AJ.
But all the smartest.
I don't know. Sorry. She was at South Carolina Convocation, and they called her Amy Jill Levine. But I don't know. We don't need to argue about her name. But,
good friends of her.
I'll put it in the show notes.
But I think it was her that wrote in her book about parables that it was a common joke structure or story structure to say a priest, a Levite, and a blank like walk into a bar. Yeah. Right? But the correct answer was Israelite. And so if they're telling this story, the people are like, oh, an Israelite's coming to help this person, right? The Israelite's going to save them, and then to have the role reversal of no, it's a Samaritan, right? Like it makes that just a touch more powerful when you have the expectation that you're going to be the one saving.
Oh wow, yeah, that's an extra powerful layer on what Jesus says. Thank you for sharing that. Like I love that. Yeah. You said something else before we started recording, but I was like, that was really powerful. Do you remember what he said?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to?
No, I don't. I mean, I sort of remember what you said, but you said it.
Well, I was just saying, like, who do you put your, like, when you're reading the story, where do you place yourself?
Oh, I can answer that.
That's not what you said.
No, it's not, but that's what I was talking about, wasn't it?
Contains multitude.
I don't think so, but like we can go down that
You were
path.
saying you asked if you would accept help from your enemy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Wait, but I liked your other question. Can I answer it?
That's a totally different question to me. But yes.
John's going to take us there. He's going to weave it together.
Let's do question number 1, and then we can do question number 2. Question number 1. Who are you in this story?
Yeah, who are you in the story? I think that leads to it.
I'm going to tell you who I am in this story because I'm a pastor in New York City who intentionally takes her collar off. I don't really wear a collar that much, but like when I go on the subway or when I walk through the street, because of how many people there are who need help, who I actually either choose not to help or cannot help, but feel that sense of like I'm the priest walking by, like the guy on the side of the road, and like that's a really bad, weird feeling. Yeah. And so I think I mean I'm not saying like I would walk by this guy, but like we live in a very different context and culture. In an urban city, whatever, you can't help everybody, but that feeling of like, actually, I'm called to help in this very public way, and I'm not doing it. I think that's really real. So that resonates with me.
Well, if I'm not the person that's half dead on the side of the road, because I feel like that's generally where I would be in this story, I would also probably be in those same shoes. Like, I know we go to like different kinds of events and stuff like that, and like, I always hate when people are like, what do you do? Like, I hate having to tell them because, like, one of 3 things happens. Well, 1, they're usually always shocked. They're like, really? And then 2, they'll either lay all of their church trauma at my feet. Or 3, it's just, like, immediate. You see those doors close.
And they stop swearing.
And they, and that they also, like, change their behavior. That's it, too. People always, like, apologize for swearing.
Apologize for having a drink in their hand.
Yeah, everything. Like, all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can also, like, that the door closes instantly, that all of a sudden, like, they're not going to talk to me at all anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel that. So like I also do the same thing where like I don't always want to
like,
engage.
wear that identity publicly
Yeah.
all the time. Which maybe isn't really what this is talking about, but I just
like it does kind of feel that way a little bit, like, right? Like it kind of
like, should you want to be everybody's pastoral counselor at a party?
Right.
Yeah. Or on the subway, or
the reality, like it's important to have public witness, but like it's also like the capacity to do that 24/7 is not sustainable.
Look at us making excuses for the priest and the Levite.
Yeah.
I mean that's there's also a both and, right? Like if we're Lutherans, we can say that, like, yes, like showing this, what does it mean, this care, this mercy, the going out of your way to do things, and also like at some point in time there has to be like a sense of self-care. So like let's Martin Luther 8th commandment this, right? Like we don't know what kind of day the Levite had or what kind of day the priest had.
His wife was having a baby and he was on the way to the hospital.
Or he literally just got out of a funeral and he was like, oh, I can't help one more dying person today. If someone's truly just like bleeding on the side of the road, that feels different than just like, your average like sitting there with a sign begging for money. I don't know why, like if they were bleeding or passed out.
Yeah.
I've done that where I've like, oh, it's time to call 911.
Sure.
I mean, I give you money, but like you clearly need like medical attention.
But I mean, I think it's interesting, even though I'm the one who did it, like who started it, like how quickly we, like most of us who, if we really take this parable seriously, will go to be like, make excuses for why it's not possible to do what the Samaritan does, right? Like,
which I think gets to the point of like, when we read this story, or when we read any parable, we try to put ourselves in it and put God in it. And we have the tendency to think that we should be the Samaritan. Like that's who we should be in the story. Right?
Like the hero.
Like we put ourselves in like the hero position. And that's exactly what, when they heard a priest, a Levite, they're like, and it's an Israelite, it's me. Right? But like, how does it change if we put ourselves in the position of the person in the ditch?
Yeah.
Like, would we accept
help from our
enemies?
Yeah. And that I think is a good question to wrestle with, right? As I think about, even at this conference that we talked about the last couple of days, because one of the things that have come up is primarily on a good chunk of campuses, if not almost every single one of them, the Lutheran campus ministries tend to be on the more progressive and liberal side of the Christian spectrum, as well as one of few or potentially the only queer affirming ministry on different campuses. And so a question came up, they're like, well, how do you work with, partner, or interact with your conservative Christian counterparts? And so, like, to me, like, that's what comes to my mind. Like, what would be a situation that, like, they're offering help? Would I accept it?
Yeah.
Well, what would the help be?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I mean, they're
going to fix me. No, I'm just kidding. I was thinking that, like if they wanted to, like, I don't know, give money to the food pantry or something.
Yes, I would definitely take it.
As long as there's no strings attached, though, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I just do we? And that's a great question, because I think as like continually as we become a very much more polarized like country, and acutely again living in the South, and like we feel that very, very deeply. Even just like from the pews, right? Like the congregation's purple. That doesn't mean that they like hug and hold hands. It means that like people coexist with very, very different ideologies of what Jesus is saying in things like this and stuff. And so like, how do you live in that balance? Or like, do you accept help from someone that might be more on that enemy scale?
I think part of it maybe is about like what assumptions we make about people that because I mean, I do think probably if somebody was like laying dying in a ditch and someone that they voted differently from them or whom they despise came and was like, I will help you, you'd probably be like, okay, thanks, because I'm like dying in a ditch right now.
I mean,
like, I think you probably wouldn't be like, it's cool, I'll wait for someone more progressive to come along.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, if you're lying in a ditch and someone with a MAGA hat and like a Trump 2028 like shirt comes up to help you, like, is that fine?
But like,
So
I was just
So I can give actually a real life kind of example of something very similar to this. I have always been a person that over my dead body, will you take me to a Catholic hospital? Or like, would I take my like child to a Catholic hospital as a queer couple? And like a lot of the policies that they have around women's bodies, and like that they can legally get away with, religious justifications. And then my child got sick in the middle of the night and like couldn't breathe. A Catholic affiliated hospital is 4 minutes away. The next closest one is 45 minutes away. Guess where we took our child?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. So I like, that's my real life example of like the decision that I made in that moment. There was no question where we were going when my child couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
Now, when she knocked her teeth in straight backwards, we did drive 45 minutes. But that was only because, like, they actually are a bigger hospital and better equipped to deal with pediatric dental emergencies.
But I mean, John, the example you just gave, it reminded me, we did a series this last year in my campus ministry in the fall on parables. And I don't know if we're talking about this one, but like I have a student who's from like the mountains of Tennessee who talked about he and his mom like got a flat tire and they were like in this like remote road. And then these dudes in like a big pickup truck with like, like guns in the back and MAGA hats came and like really kindly helped them. And he was like, obviously that doesn't like change our politics, but like he was like, I was afraid. And then they were like deeply kind. Yeah. And like, and I think what I was maybe trying to get at a minute ago and then got distracted is just like, hopefully not that often are we in positions of like great vulnerability where we need the life-saving help of anyone, much less our enemies. But I do think like the assumptions that we make about people as people that we, dislike or are just fundamentally wrong or bad, evil in some way prevents us from seeing the ways that we actually can help each other. Because I, assume that somebody thinks a certain way, or I assume that this is what they're capable of. And it's like, oftentimes that's not true, right? So
yeah, I think you're right. It's inviting us to like see each other as like humans, and that like people can be good people, right? When it like comes down to it, like, yes, we can disagree about things. And rightfully so, like things that like are desperately important to me as a human being, and that person just isn't inherently evil.
Right. Like there's still a person, a child of God.
Yes,
like,
yes, exactly.
And they still like have gifts to offer and gifts that we can offer them.
It does show the ways that like our current realities and social media and everything has just led us to dehumanize anyone that's not like completely aligned with us.
Yeah. To recognize that like, yes, those are also still children of God, and like they're probably also not the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And they also will still come out and maybe shovel my sidewalk when it snows once every 10 years in Charleston.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah.
That's so nice.
This is one guy just like shoveled the whole block. I was like...
Isn't it fun to have neighbors?
It's like, what? Does your back hurt? Like, I don't...
Like, I recognize it's not neighbor the way Jesus is talking about, but like, since I moved to the suburbs, just like having relationships with my neighbors and like being like, like elderly man next door will shovel your driveway, or like let's all just like helping each other out. I find that it's like a very beautiful thing. Yeah. Obviously that's...
We had that in Baltimore though too. Like our neighbors, like, we had a couple of ladies that were there all the time, and I want to be clear, nothing happened on our street that they didn't know about.
Yeah, they were taking care of everything.
They were taking care of everything and everyone, and knew who everyone was and who everyone's like cars were. Like my car got like sideswiped in the middle of the night once. I have no idea why she was awake, but like my neighbor across the street like caught the whole thing, got that person's license plate number, and just like handed me the information next day. I was like, what? Thank you. Yeah. I hadn't even realized that there was a scratch on my car yet. Like,
I like thinking that they like were in shifts and just like there's never a time when there aren't eyes on the block.
yeah, they probably do.
Probably felt very vindicated that like she caught something.
She's like, I got him. Ain't causing trouble in my neighborhood. No, but like, so there's a both and right of like this whole like neighborly aspect and what that looks like, which I also think is somewhat, unfortunately, of like a dying thing. Like, people don't know their neighbors like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call her out because I know she actually kind of like loves it, but like Sarah Locke lives in a little like cul-de-sac, and like they're all just like, they kind of like group watch children, and like everyone is open to everyone. They just kind of like go over to each other's house like all the time, and they just have like the most beautiful little like small little, you know, niche right there of like people that they like are like our neighbors became like our best friends, and it was like the weirdest thing ever, but like they love it, and their kids love each other, and they do things together, and like that is just like such a beautiful like microcosm of community, that like I don't know how we echo that in larger spaces, but like, so I think that there's like two things here. Like, yes, there's like that actual like quote neighbor, but then there's also the idea of like, what does kindness to strangers look like?
Yeah.
What is showing compassion to people who you know are different than you, that you know don't believe the same things you do,
or that you'll just like never see again?
Yeah.
Right. Like.
In which, and I think like maybe that's the compassion that Jesus is genuinely like pointing us towards.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah. You're allowed to do that?
I don't know. I'm not used to being on a podcast.
This is what editing's for?
Oh, okay, cool.
I can make these silences go away later.
I think that actually makes me feel a lot better.
I was thinking about how we often like, I think in those situations where we're trying to determine in the moment whether or not to help someone,
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of people it comes down to like fear of being judged, or like there's like a self-conscious, like, how am I going to be perceived? Is someone going to record this? Like, is it going to end up on social media? Like what are all, like, how am I going to be perceived in the moment rather than just the basic, like, let me care for this person. Right. Or like, what if I do the wrong thing, or I don't ask the right question, or, you know, I make things worse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also just like general anxiety in the world. But I think working with college students, sometimes that's what I feel like I hear. Like, I don't know what to do in this social situation, and so I just don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that, like, you see that a lot, right? Like, if you're not standing up, if you're the person remaining silent, then you're actively complicit with the oppressors, right? Like, I've seen that and heard that multiple times, right? And like, I don't like that. I don't think there's a lot of grace in that. And again, as more and more things about, like, you know, Nazi resurgences keep popping up on the socials, right? That like, that's how it was perceived, right? That the Germans were complicit with what was happening because, like, they didn't say anything, even though they knew it was happening right next to them. Right? So, like, that's where that, like, idea comes from. But, like,
yeah.
I just, like, to me, that, like, I don't like that. Like, I don't think it's that simple because there's, you know, like, every person is more complicated than that, right? Like, think about the No Kings rally. I did not go.
Okay.
Because with everything that was happening, I was absolutely terrified that something would get violent. And I have a 3-year-old, so I didn't go. Now, it wasn't violent. Everything was fine, at least in the Charleston area. But like, so like that, to me, it's not like I don't care. It's not that I don't want that to happen. It's not that I'm not doing things to help further, you know, those causes, right? But it's in that moment, that's why I did not go.
Or like students who invite me to rallies or protests that they're not going to go to because they're worried about getting their scholarship revoked.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, yeah, like I get that.
Yeah.
Like,
you use your privilege.
You need to.
Not that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah. Like, I don't want you to have your scholarship revoked, and this is important.
Wait, but can you guys connect this back to the Good Samaritan? Because I'm feeling a little.
Why they may not have helped.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I got you.
That they weren't just like...
Because they were living in like a fascist
That they weren't
state.
complicit with pain and torture and death on the side of the road, but like maybe there was something preventing them from helping.
Or maybe there was costs that we don't understand in our context.
Yeah. Again, it's a parable. This isn't like Jesus isn't saying this is a true story that happened, but I just adding some layers to...
Yeah.
But that everyone isn't necessarily like, that doesn't make them, that the fact that the priest and Levite didn't stop doesn't make them inherently evil people. Right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're just foils in the story for the Samaritan, right?
I'm putting this into life context.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you.
That's generally what we do when we contextualize the Bible and like stuff.
I'm just trying to think of. I'm just thinking about it. I think this is all really good stuff. I don't know.
I just think it's important to like put this in like context, right? Of sort of like you get that like cut and dry preaching that you get that like these people were bad, this guy was good, go and be the good guy.
Well, I just don't think you can. I mean, to go back to the sort of what you guys are lifting up about like whether if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem sort of mentality. Mm-hmm. I think it's really unhelpful to like have a person to think that there's some like prescribed way that we all need to act at all times to like be moral and good people or whatever it is. I think something that my spiritual director, who's awesome, said to me after this latest presidential election when I was sort of like despair spiraling a little bit, was like, I don't know what we can do, but like, I think that if we pay attention, that we will discover, and that, she's saying, and you will discover opportunities to act in the place that you are, with the gifts that you have, in your context, with your privilege, and that you're not going to be able to do everything, but God is going to invite you into those moments, right? And I think that, to me, I'm thinking about reading this parable in that way, not that like the Samaritan is just like this fundamentally good person and everyone else is a fundamentally bad person, but the Samaritan had an open enough heart and like eyes and mind or whatever to be like, in this moment, God is inviting me into this action of mercy and love, and like I'm responding to it, right? And can't all do that all the time. But I think if we pay attention, we all have those opportunities. And sometimes it takes us out of our comfort zone, right? It takes us across the lines that we'd rather not cross. But I think we'll know when we're being called to that if we actually pay attention to it.
That's beautiful.
Well, it was my spiritual director.
That's a great
Susan Hill.
Yep.
Shout out Susan Hill.
No, but like you're absolutely right, and that helps with like the earlier question, like where would you be in the story? And you're like, I would probably be the priest that walked by, and like,
but sometimes you're not, right? And like maybe as we grow in our discipleship, more and more we're not.
So this is actually also like I think a boundary and a problem that most pastors face is that you cannot be everything to every person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually like a really, really hard line to draw for most pastors. Of like, you can't. You can't. It's not possible. And so where do we draw those lines and like to discern and wade through that?
Well, I think also if you overfunction in that way, like whether it's emotionally or doing stuff or whatever,
you're not doing anything for anyone.
Well, A, but B, you're actually like enabling other, like you're disempowering other people from being part of the body of Christ and living out there. Like that's sort of a side tangent, but like you don't just because you're like a pastor doesn't mean like you need to be the Samaritan all the time. It's like, how do you invite people to?
We're the fourth person sometimes standing at a distance, being like, "Hey, do that." Pointing to the thing and being like,
"Do you see that?
Do you see that bleeding guy? Like, help!"
No, it's the bystander part of like when you do like CPR training or like first aid training. Uh-huh. Like one of the things that you learn is you have to look someone directly in this eye and say, "You call 911."
Because everyone will just feel helpless, or
because like everyone will assume someone else is, or everyone feels helpless, but that like you have to like directly say to someone, you do this, which kind of feels like, you know, so like there's a fifth character in this story, right? The innkeeper.
Oh
Yeah,
because like the Samaritan could have done different things, right? Like he could have stayed and made the innkeeper go run some errands or whatever. He cared for the whole person. But like he enabled the innkeeper and empowered the innkeeper to do that caring and funding that ministry.
give money to campus ministry.
That's
a plug.
a great plug. That's the moral of the whole story. Yeah. We drug you through this entire parable for that. Yeah. But yeah, that there's this fifth character in this story, and like where does he fit in with this whole like call from God? Because he also had the opportunity to say no. Right?
the right to refuse service.
Yes. I do not want to take care of this stranger. No.
This is too much to handle.
But he didn't.
No.
So what does that like where?
Really hold that in contrast with that innkeeper who wouldn't even let Mary have the baby there.
Yeah, right? Come on.
Maybe same innkeeper really grew.
Oh man.
Jesus wanted to show growth.
Yeah. Remember that one time that I was born in your barn? Now, we're going to do this.
Yeah. I love the innkeeper, my new favorite character in the story. I do like the way that if you sort of emphasize that relationship, you think about how like nobody is the hero. Like there's no one hero in this story, right? That we are able to care for our neighbors because of the ways we can do it together.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah, that is. And then bringing that community aspect. Yeah, for sure. Right. That like he didn't just do it by himself. That God and Jesus and how he tells this parable isn't expecting you to go out and like fix everyone, everything, all their problems. It's that together we can make a difference. I think I just summarized what you said.
No, you did. It was good. This is my thinking face.
Got it.
That's what
Okay.
it looks like when I'm thinking. I feel like AJ, last time I was on your podcast, maybe we talked about this. So if we did, I apologize. But like, was I talking to you about the tent hospital during COVID in Central Park?
No.
Oh, okay. So
It's not that I can recall.
during like the height of, like 2020 COVID lockdown, I was living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, right next to Central Park.
Oh, how fancy.
And I am a very fancy type of a person. So thank you for acknowledging that.
I also know your child's bedroom was your closet, so I know it wasn't that fancy.
It was a fancy closet. I put a removable wallpaper in there. It was really cute. But my child, my wife was like a urgent emergency, one of the people who works at a hospital. So she was working. So I was just at home with my 1.5-year-old all day, which was like my idea of hell. And so we would just spend all day, every day, because my apartment was so small that there was nothing. We would spend all day, every day in Central Park. And across the park from us, is Mount Sinai Hospital, and they had built, it was over capacity. They were like retrofitting the rooms to have like ventilation and then whatever. There wasn't enough room for all the people who were being hospitalized from COVID in those early days. So this group came in and built a field hospital, like you're in a war in a big field in Central Park, and we'd go by it every day. But the group that built it is called Samaritan's Purse, and it's run by Franklin Graham. Yeah. And so it was like very controversial because people were like, yes, we need this field hospital because like people are dying, and like, does it really have to be provided by freaking like this like total like bigoted conservative Yahoo Franklin Graham and his organization? But I feel like it's kind of actually helpful to think about. It's cool. It's called Samaritan's Purse. I mean, I get why, because they're like funding ways of helping people, but also like everyone's like being like, do we even want help from Franklin Graham? Yeah. It's sort of like the Good Samaritan.
You're right. That's right back to John's question of like, would you accept help from someone that you don't like? There's that enemy.
Right. And so I don't know. I think, and so like, obviously, the help was accepted by the city or who, I don't know. I guess it was the city who received that. But just, I think it was helpful to have and a lot of people I was talking to sort of like resistance challenged a little bit to be like, yes, there are things I disagree with And
Yeah.
can I get over myself and get over that enough to recognize there's also like
Yeah.
profound good happening?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I agree with that.
But I'm glad it was called Samaritan's Purse, or I never would have made that connection. So thank you.
But that was a very
Franklin.
good example for what we were talking about like 15 minutes ago. So I'm glad that you shared
Takes
that.
me a while to
Just lope that back around.
just edit it to a different part.
This is how people know that like this is not a pre-scripted podcast. Which comes with its beauties and its drawbacks. The beauties is because like when these things kind of just like flow naturally, I think that you really get some beautiful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The drawbacks, sometimes we get a little back and forth here, and it's like chasing squirrels. But like that's also typically how my brain works, and then I bring in other pastors who, quite frankly, a lot of pastors function that way. And it's fascinating to me. Not related to this whatsoever, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up because Becca has to go run and get custard.
Just a lot of 120 frozen custards. I'm bringing 2 more coolers into the space.
Your life is just a dream.
When you sign up for
Custard
certain roles,
runs.
you think that this is what it's going to be like. I'm a pastor. What was the profound thing you did today? I had to go get 125 frozen
go get-
custards.
400 toasted raviolis. It's going to be fine.
We all get to host trivia later.
I know. I'm
So
so excited.
excited.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe when we finish the podcast, we can talk about the logistics of that.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us and unpacking like one of my favorite stories, and I appreciate all of your insights and the things that we shared. This is magical. And I really can't remember if I'm preaching this Sunday or not, but I'm going to use it if I am.
I'm sure someday you'll preach on this again.
Yeah, I think I might be. My Sunday schedule is a little erratic, but you work in campus ministries, you understand that. Anyways, thank you so much. I appreciate both of you and your time and your insights. And thank you so much for all the things. Everyone, remember you can learn more about the podcast on our website, 10footballpodcast.com, and find us on Facebook and Instagram at 10footballpodcast. My apologies that I have not posted a lot lately. 1, I've been traveling a lot, and 2, I got a new phone, and it took me a long time to figure out how to get back into my social media accounts, because I have now reached that threshold of adulthood. And remember, as always, the 10 Football Podcast is a ministry of the Delaware Maryland Synod. To learn more, go to demdsynod.org. Take care.